Omnivore's Dilemma, page 1, preface. This book just might change your life. I know, that sounds a little over the top, doesn't it? I would never make such a bold claim, except that in the years since The Omnivore's Dilemma was first published in 2006, thousands of readers have told me exactly that. Sometimes in letters and emails, other times in person, including complete strangers on the street. Your book changed my life. I'm always surprised to hear it because that certainly wasn't my goal when I sat down to write the book. And changing people's lives sounds like a big responsibility. So I usually gulp and then say something like, in a good way, I hope. But I'm always curious to find out what they mean. So I often ask them to tell me exactly how they've changed since reading the book. The answers are very different, often surprising, and usually extremely gratifying. Some people tell me they lost weight after reading the book, and they pull out snapshots of their larger former selves. Apparently, what they learned in the book about how fast food is made convinced them to stop eating it, and the pounds began to fall off, even though this is definitely not a diet book. Other people tell me that they read The Omnivore's Dilemma and decide to change their career and become a farmer. Big gulp. How is it working for you? I ask a little nervously, since farming is a tough way to make a living. They usually tell me that the work is incredibly hard, but it is also incredibly satisfying, and that they wouldn't dream of doing anything else in their lives. Phew. Many people tell me that the book changed the way they think about eating, and that now they spend a lot more time deciding on what to put in their mouths. This book has made them aware of how their food choices affect the environment, or animals, or their own health, and they want to start by voting with their forks. An idea I will explain later. For young people, that can mean encouraging their parents to shop differently, to buy organic or local food, for example. Your parents are used to their kids making all sorts of demands about food, usually for the greatest and latest cereal or energy drink, and so they're pleasantly surprised when their kids start asking for organic vegetables or eggs from small farms where the chickens live outdoors and eat a natural diet. Then there are the vegetarians and the meat eaters, whose reactions to the book could not be more different. I've heard from lots of readers who say that after reading about the way animals are treated in factory farms, they felt they could no longer eat meat and decided to become vegetarians, even though this book is not an argument against eating meat. So I figured that one of the impacts of the book was to inspire vegetarianism, until I began hearing from some vegetarians whose reactions really surprised me. There's a typical letter from a vegetarian high schooler. I haven't eaten a bite of meat since I was 6, but after reading your book, I decided to start eating meat again. I never knew there were farms like Polyface in Virginia where the animals were treated so well and get to lead such happy lives. I want to support those kinds of farms, so now I eat that kind of humanely raised meat when I can. Instead of calling myself a vegetarian, I now call myself a conscious carnivore. The fact that carnivores and vegetarians responded in two totally different ways to the same information tells me that the book is doing its job. That job is simply to get us to think about something that hardly ever crosses our minds, where our food comes from and how it gets to us. So I really like the idea that two people could read the same book and come to such radically different conclusions. I didn't write The Omnivore's Dilemma to convince you to eat one kind of food or another. My aim is to give you the information you need to make good choices. What is a good choice? That's simple. One that allows you to be true to your values, to what you most care about. The fact is, our food choices are some of the most important choices we can make in life. The way we eat has a bigger effect on our health and the health of the planet and any other activity. 4 of the top 10 diseases that all kill Americans are the result of bad diet. What you put on your plate changes nature more than anything else you do. If that sounds over the top thinking, think about it. Farming has changed the landscape more than any other human activity. Agriculture also determines which species of animals are thriving, cows, chickens, and pigs, the ones we eat, and which are in trouble, like wolves and other predators that want to eat the ones we want to eat. And though you're probably well aware of how the fossil fuel your family uses to heat your home or power your car contributes to climate change, did you know that the farming and food industry produces even more greenhouse gases than all forms of transportation put together? That's what I mean when I say that the way you eat affects the world more than anything else you do. This might sound like a big responsibility, and it is, but it's also a great opportunity, especially for people your age. Why? Because although you won't be able to vote in elections until you're 18, you can vote with your fork right now by choosing to eat food that reflects your values and to avoid ones that don't. Best of all, you can vote this way not just once, but 3 times a day. Does this sort of voting make a difference? Without a doubt. Consider the changes we've seen in just the last few years. When The Omnivore's Dilemma was published in 2006, there were 4,000 farmers markets in America. Now there are more than 8,000. In 2006, the organic food was a $15 billion industry. Now it's a $35 billion industry. The market for sustainability raised meat, milk, and eggs has exploded in the last decade. A new generation of young people are starting small, sustainable farms. One of the most popular internships for college students today is working on an organic farm. Since Michelle Obama planted an organic vegetable garden on the grounds of the White House, the number of Americans growing vegetables at home has soared to about 35% of all families. And a whole range of food and farming issues have never been on the public's radar are now being debated across the country and in Washington, D.C. One of the most exciting developments we've seen in the last decade or so is the rise of the food movement in America, a movement to change the way we produce, consume food so that farmers, food workers, animals, the land, and the environment are all treated with greater respect. There's a lot we can do to push the food system in this direction, but it begins with informing yourself about what's at stake, and then voting with your fork now, and then in a few years with your ballot, for the kind of world you would like to live in. This book is an invitation to think about both the problems of how we produce food today and some of the inspiring solutions people are coming up with to build a better food system for everyone and everything it touches. Welcome to the conversation.